Okay, so now we're going to move on to an instance where a tax is being imposed on the producers. And so previously, when the tax was being imposed on the consumers, we saw this represented by a shift in the demand curve. It was affecting, well, because it was affecting the consumers versus now that it's affecting the producers, we're going to see this represented as a shift in the supply curve. And to get into this, let's first talk about just a reminder of what the supply curve represents. The supply curve represents the cost to produce a good. For instance, like right down here, where the quantity is zero, at about $5. What this means is that when the price of this good is $5, producers are going to look at that and say, you know, it's not worth producing that good if I'm only going to get $5 from it. And why might it not be worth it to them? Maybe because it costs more than $5 to actually produce the good. So you get up and say, you know, you get to a price of, you know, right here about $15, and then you'll have people producing about 5 units because that's how much it costs. $15 is what it costs to produce those 5 units for them to be able to sell. Let's consider the instance again of like the sandwich shop. It costs money to go out. You have to go out and buy the bread, the meats, the lettuce, mayonnaise, and whatever, you know, to produce sandwiches to sell. So, you know, let's say that this person is selling sandwiches and they're like, okay, you know, once I buy all the bread and all the supplies and everything, you know, I'll be able to afford that as long as I'm charging $5 for a sandwich. So, you know, they go out, they do that. They're selling sandwiches for $5 each. And then one day there's a tax. Now, you know, if you're going to be selling sandwiches, you have to pay the government, you know, this tax being imposed on producers. If you're going to sell sandwiches, you have to pay the government $2. So now the cost of selling sandwiches isn't just represented by PV, which, you know, for them was the $5. Now it's going to be $5 plus the tax. They're not going to have to just buy all of the supplies. They're also going to have to pay the tax to be able to keep selling sandwiches. And so their price, you know, a $2 tax, their cost of operating went from $5 to supplies to $5 for supplies plus $2 of paying the tax is $7. And so now they have this new cost. And it doesn't matter if they were selling, you know, it doesn't matter if they were selling 5 sandwiches. It doesn't matter if they are selling 10 sandwiches. For every sandwich they sell, they have to pay this tax now to the government. And so that's why when we see this tax imposed on producers, this is represented by a shift upwards. We add the tax to the supply curve to represent this tax being an additional cost to the suppliers. So now let's, based on that, let's look over here. We have our example here where, you know, it's the same example we had before. PB is still 75 minus 3 QB. PV is still $5, or is still 5 plus 2 QB. And now we have a tax being imposed on the producers of $15. So this is represented by PV. The original PV was 5 plus 2 QV. And now plus that tax. And in this case, the tax is $15 in this example. And so to sort of simplify this, to group common terms together, that would be, we can do 5 plus 15. So we see the shifted PV, the PB or the PV shifted for the tax is going to be represented by 20 plus 2 QV. And this is going to be the purple curve. And then just like before, blue is still our demand curve and red is our original supply curve. So now we're going to, also I do want to note with this, remember previously the demand curve, when the tax was on consumers, the demand curve still represented the amount that consumers were willing to pay. And in this case, this red supply curve, that still represents the that still represents the cost to produce the good. That still represents the cost to the suppliers to produce the good. The purple curve, this purple shifted curve, represents the cost to produce the good plus the cost of additionally paying the tax. Sorry, just let me take care of this notification real quick. Okay, so real quick, again, I'm gonna break this up into two parts just to make sure I don't run over on time. We're gonna start by looking at what the quantity traded after tax is. So when setting the price and determining how many units they're going to produce now with this tax, consumers or producers are going to have to keep the tax in mind, because again, they're not going to want to do business and create units if they're not going to be able to sell them, or if it's going to be too expensive to produce them. Then they're going to be losing money. So they want to keep the tax in mind when determining how many goods they're going to produce and sell. And so since they're keeping in mind the cost of producing the good and the price of paying the tax, we're going to ignore the supply curve for a second and look at this purple curve, which represents their cost of producing the good and paying the tax together, combined. So this is going to be their total cost of being in the market. And we're going to look at where these this purple curve now, this taxed curve, intersects the demand curve. So we have this point right here. And just kind of drawing a line down, I can see this is going to be 11. The way we can do this algebraically is we're going to take our PV tax curve, and we're going to set it equal to our PB curve, our demand curve. And so our shifted curve with the tax was 20 plus 2 QV, plus 2Q, and our demand curve is 75 minus 3Q. So doing a bit of algebra here, we see 5Q is going to be equal to 55. Divide both sides by 5, and we get Q equals 11. So our quantity here then is going to be 11. That's the quantity that's going to be traded in the market. And now we're going to look at the price paid by the consumers after the tax. I'm just going to bring both curves back up. So the price paid by the consumers after the tax is, we're just going to look up at 11 units, how many, what's the price on the demand curve, how much are consumers willing to pay for 11 units. So our PB will be over here. We'll just do this by taking our PB equals 75 minus 3Q. We know that our Q in this case is going to be 11 units. And so that gives us 42 is going to be our price paid by the consumers. Now, the price received by the producers. So the producers are receiving 42, they're charging $42 for this good, but remember, they do have to pay that tax. So the amount that they're going to actually receive after the tax has been paid is actually going to be down here at at 11 units on the supply curve. So we're just going to draw this line out here, and this line down here is going to be the PV, the amount that they get to keep after the tax has been paid. So our PV is, this is looking at our original supply curve. So this is going to be 5 plus 2Q. Our Q is 11 units. So we have 5 plus 2 times 11, and that's going to give us 27. So it's not as obvious with the numbers on this one, but again, if we were to take 42 and then subtract 27, we would be getting 15, which is the value of the tax. And this is the tax wedge, by the way, the difference between the price the consumers are paying and the amount that the price consumers are paying and the amount the producers are receiving is the tax wedge, which is just the value of the tax being imposed on the market. Um, so yeah, that's our quantity traded. When the tax is imposed on the producers, that's how we find our quantity traded, our price being paid by producers, or being paid by consumers, and our price being received by producers. I'm going to stop it here, and our last recording will be covering consumer surplus, producer surplus, and revenue and deadweight loss in this case.